In the mists of time, long before the world knew the name Alexander, there was a land on the edge of ancient Greece, a place where myth and reality collided, where kings were forged not just by birth, but by the fire of destiny. Macedonia, a rugged kingdom hidden in the northern highlands beneath the shadow of Mount Olympus, wasn't born of grandiose legends or thunderstruck gods. No, it emerged from the silent, untamed wilderness of tribal territory, a land that whispered promises of greatness. But how did this small, seemingly insignificant kingdom rise to become the power that would crush empires and shape the course of history? What made this forgotten, harsh land the birthplace of one of the most revered and feared leaders the world would ever know? This is the story of a bloodline that intertwined with gods, a kingdom born from the ashes of ancient struggles, and a fate that would thrust its rulers into the pages of history forever. The rise of Macedonia was not a matter of chance, it was a carefully carved destiny. A journey that began in the mythic past, in the very heart of a royal house, where the whispers of legends would shape the future of not just Greece, but the entire known world. The first king of this dynasty, Perdiccas I, a figure veiled in mystery and legends, was said to have been drawn by divine omens to establish the Macedonian throne. It's said that Perdiccas, a man whose existence is now debated, was connected to the royal bloodline of Argos through his family's ties to the Timenid kings. These connections to the southern city-state of Argos helped forge a path for the Argeria dynasty, which would eventually give rise to the legend of Alexander the Great. What makes Perdiccas so important, despite the vagueness of his historical existence? It is the myth, the moment that defines the very essence of the Macedonian royal house. It was during a fateful moment when Perdiccas was said to have been granted a divine sign, a ray of sunlight piercing through the smoke hole of his humble home. From that moment on, Perdiccas understood that he was chosen for something much greater than mere kingship. A symbol, a mark of divine favor, pushed him to claim his throne not by birthright alone, but by the will of the gods themselves. But did the gods really choose him? Or was it the men who came before him, those tribal warriors who saw in his lineage a way to build a future out of the wilds of the north? Whatever the truth, it was clear Perdiccas had a destiny. The Macedonian kings that followed him inherited not just his throne, but the weight of his divine right, a power forged by the gods and tempered by the trials of a land that demanded survival at all costs. The legend of Perdiccas and his kingdom is not just a tale of royalty, it is a blueprint for how great empires are built. Greatness doesn't always come from wealth or numbers. Sometimes it comes from the strength of a single vision. It comes from a people united by a common dream, fighting not for mere survival, but for the creation of something eternal. For Macedonia, that dream was forged in fire, and it would lead them to conquer the world. Macedonia was not built overnight. It was a land of harsh terrains and ruthless battles. The mountains were a fortress that shielded its people, but they also stood as a reminder of the challenges that lay ahead. To the south, the Greek city-states were prospering, developing culture, philosophy, and politics. But here, in the north, it was a different story. Macedonia was a place where survival meant strength, and strength meant war. And so began the slow, steady consolidation of the various tribal groups scattered across the rugged Macedonian lands. From the fertile river valleys to the harsh mountain peaks, these tribes came together, not just by force, but by a shared will to dominate. It was under the reign of Perdiccas' successors that Macedonia began to grow step by step, until it could no longer be ignored. In the ancient capital of Aigi, what is now Vina, the kings operated not from the grandeur of a city-state, but from the raw, powerful heart of the Macedonian highlands. From this stronghold, they controlled vital trade routes that snaked through the harsh terrain, creating pathways for merchants and soldiers alike. But these roads, winding through the hills and valleys, were not only the key to Macedonia's economic prosperity, they were also the lifeline to survival in a land constantly threatened by raids from the Irian tribes, fierce warriors whose presence loomed like shadows over the Macedonian frontier. The geography of Macedonia was a kingdom of contradictions. It was a land of opportunity and danger, where the rewards of trade could be as great as the losses of war. To the east, Macedonia bordered Thrace, a land of complex tribal confederations and deep-set trade networks that had thrived for centuries. But it was the coastal territories that gave Macedonia its most crucial advantage. With ports such as Pydna and Amphipolis, Macedonia gained access to the thriving trade routes of the northern Aegean, and with it came untold wealth timber, precious metals, and fertile agricultural land. The Macedonian kings knew the value of these natural resources. They did not simply mine the land for wealth. They turned that wealth into power, using it to bolster the kingdom's military strength and expand its influence. But what Macedonia had in wealth, it lacked in stability. For generations, the threat of tribal raids and external invasions loomed over the kingdom, threatening to shatter the fragile peace that the kings had fought to build. Macedonia's survival depended on its leaders' ability to unite these disparate tribal factions into a cohesive force. The foundation of this unity was not built on ideals of democracy or philosophy, like in the southern Greek city-states, but on the raw, unshakable loyalty to the king. It was this loyalty, above all else, that would become the hallmark of the Macedonian military system, a system that would not only carry the kingdom to the edge of Europe, but into the heart of Persia and beyond. It was in this environment, amid the harsh landscapes and brutal political realities, that the Macedonian companion cavalry was born. The heteroi, or companions, were not just soldiers, they were the elite, the backbone of the Macedonian army, bound to the king through personal loyalty and military prowess. They rode not just to fight but to conquer, and their strength lay in their ability to strike quickly, hit hard, and vanish before their enemies could react. This cavalry was the pinnacle of Macedonia's military power, a reflection of the kingdom's rugged, resilient spirit. The companion cavalry became the most feared mounted force in the ancient world, and it was their unyielding power that would allow Macedonia to break through the defences of any foe. But this was only the beginning. As the kingdom expanded, the military strategies and innovations would grow even more sophisticated. Under the reign of future kings like Philip II, the military system would be transformed, making Macedonia not just a regional power, but an unstoppable force on the world stage. Before we dive deeper into how this small kingdom would grow into one of the most powerful empires in history, make sure to hit the subscribe button to support this channel. By doing so, you're helping us continue bringing you more engaging and insightful content. Don't miss out on the next chapter of this incredible journey. Stay tuned and keep following along as we explore the rise of Macedonia and the man who would change the world forever, Alexander the Great. In the midst of these ancient struggles and divine omens, there lies a lesson, one that resonates across time and borders. The story of Macedonia's rise is not just the tale of kings and battles, but of vision, resilience, and the unwavering belief in one's destiny. It speaks to something deep within us all, something universal, the power of believing in a future that is greater than what we see in front of us. Macedonia was born from nothing but a harsh landscape and a collection of fragmented tribes. Yet, it was through unity, through the gathering of strength in the face of adversity, that it became one of the most formidable powers in the ancient world. What does that teach us today? In life, we often find ourselves in situations that seem impossible, where the odds are stacked against us and the future appears uncertain. We may not have divine omens or rays of sunlight pointing us towards greatness, but we have something perhaps even more powerful, the ability to choose our path, to build our vision, and to rally others around a common dream. The story of Macedonia reminds us that even the most difficult, even the most seemingly impossible, situations can lead to greatness if we are willing to fight for what we believe in. Look at Perdiccas I, a man whose existence, like many great leaders, is shrouded in myth. He wasn't born into an empire. He wasn't born with wealth, but he was born with vision. A simple ray of sunlight, a divine sign, became the spark that ignited a fire that would burn for centuries. He looked beyond the immediate hardships and saw something greater, and it was this vision, this belief in the destiny of his land, that would ultimately shape the course of history. The question we must ask ourselves is, are we willing to follow our vision, no matter how distant or improbable it may seem? Can we take the first steps, even in the face of uncertainty, knowing that each step we take brings us closer to something greater? In a world filled with distractions, With the noise of opinions and the fear of failure, it's easy to forget the importance of staying true to a vision. But it's in these moments of doubt that we must remember the story of Macedonia. Perdiccas and his successors didn't allow their land's harshness to dictate their fate. They didn't bow to the difficulties of their geography or the constant threat of invasion. Instead, they turned every challenge into an opportunity to grow stronger, more united, and more resilient. What made Macedonia so formidable wasn't just its military power, but its ability to endure. In the face of internal strife, external threats, and a harsh environment, the kings of Macedonia were able to unite their people through a shared vision. The loyalty of the heteroi, the elite cavalry, was born not just out of duty, but out of a shared belief that they were part of something larger than themselves. It was a loyalty forged in the fires of survival, but also in the hope of something greater. This lesson, this idea of unity, is something we can all take to heart. We live in a world that constantly challenges our sense of purpose, where we're told that our individual efforts don't matter in the grand scheme of things. But Macedonia tells us otherwise. It teaches us that even a small, seemingly insignificant group of people, when united by a common vision, can achieve the unimaginable. And perhaps most importantly, the story of Macedonia speaks to the power of resilience. The land was harsh, the enemies many, and yet the Macedonian kings never gave up. They didn't just survive, they thrived. They built something that would last long after their time. They didn't surrender to the challenges. They faced them head-on, knowing that each challenge, no matter how formidable, would only make them stronger. Isn't that what we all want in life? To build something that lasts, to create something that has meaning? The kings of Macedonia, despite their flaws and their struggles, left behind a legacy, one that transcended their individual lives. It wasn't about personal glory. It was about building a future, a world where their people could thrive. Today, when we look at our own challenges, whether personal or professional, we should remember the lesson of Macedonia. Greatness doesn't come from comfort or ease. It comes from vision, from unity, from resilience, and from the belief that even the most humble beginnings can lead to the most magnificent of empires. So, when the road gets tough, when the future seems uncertain, ask yourself, are you willing to be the Perdiccas of your time? Are you willing to take that first step, to believe in something greater than yourself, to rise above the challenges and build your own empire, no matter how small it may seem at first? Because, as history shows us, even the most remote, rugged lands can give rise to greatness if only we dare to believe. And with that, if you found value in this journey through history, the lessons it holds, and the inspiration it brings, make sure to hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you're not just supporting this channel, but also helping to fuel more content that dives deep into these historical journeys, unraveling stories that continue to inspire us. Stay with us, and keep exploring the wisdom of the past to build the future of greatness. The land of Macedonia is a paradox. At first glance, it is a place that seems destined for struggle, a land that nature itself seems to have designed for survival of the fittest. Surrounded by towering mountain ranges and harsh, rugged terrain, it seems an unlikely birthplace for any empire, let alone one that would eventually conquer the known world. Yet, it was precisely this geography, harsh, unyielding, and difficult, that would shape not just the Macedonian people, but also the very essence of their military and political strategy. Macedonia's geographical challenges were its crucible, forging the strength of its kings and people. The kingdom was nestled in the northern part of Greece, surrounded by the mighty peaks of the Balkan Mountains and bordered by the fertile plains of Thrace to the east. To the north, wild tribal territories lay in wait, with fierce warriors from Irian and Thrian tribes ready to strike at any moment. The land was split between fertile river valleys and craggy, inhospitable mountains, creating a kingdom of sharp contrasts, a place where survival was never guaranteed and the price of failure was often death. For the people of Macedonia, however, this was home, and it shaped everything. The mountains were both a protection and a prison. They isolated the kingdom from the southern Greek city-states, where art, philosophy, and democracy flourished. While Athens, Sparta, and Thebes grew in sophistication, Macedonia remained a land of warriors, where the concept of greatness was shaped not by intellectual pursuits, but by the strength of the spear and the sharpness of the mind in battle. It is easy to imagine the early Macedonian kings standing atop these peaks, looking out over their lands, harsh and unforgiving, but full of promise. And it was from this land, where every day was a battle for survival, that a vision of greatness began to take root. It was not a vision of cities adorned with statues and theatres, or great thinkers debating in the agora. It was a vision of military might, of a kingdom built not on luxury or philosophy, but on the steel of its warriors and the loyalty they felt toward their king. The geography of Macedonia demanded something special from its rulers. To survive, they needed to be tacticians, visionaries who could navigate not just the rough terrain, but also the political and military realities of their time. The Macedonian kings could not afford to lead from behind palace walls. They had to be warriors, able to inspire their people with both the sword and the mind. This was a kingdom that could not rest on the laurels of its wealth or natural beauty. It had to create its strength from the very land that surrounded it. As we look back at the rise of Macedonia, it is clear that the kingdom's geography was a defining force. The mountains provided natural defences, but they also isolated the kingdom from the outside world. It was both a fortress and a prison. The rivers, like the Axios and Halakmon, were lifelines that connected the land, allowing trade and communication to flow, yet they also became the battlegrounds where invasions and skirmishes took place. This rugged terrain wasn't just a backdrop for Macedonia's rise, it was an active participant in the story. And this geography gave rise to a new kind of warrior, the Macedonian soldier. Unlike the heavily armoured hoplites of the southern Greek city-states, who fought in close formations and depended on discipline and coordination, the Macedonian soldiers had to adapt to the challenging terrain. The mountains and valleys of their homeland taught them the value of mobility. The cavalry, particularly the companion cavalry, became the backbone of Macedonia's military might, striking fast, hitting hard, and retreating into the landscape before the enemy could respond. The geography of Macedonia demanded that its soldiers be swift, unpredictable, and relentless qualities that would define their military strategy for centuries. The companion cavalry wasn't just a force to be reckoned with in battle. It was a symbol of the Macedonian way of war. These riders, loyal to their king, rode not just to fight, but to conquer. They embodied the Macedonian spirit, unyielding, daring, and fiercely loyal. They were trained to use their horses as extensions of themselves, allowing them to navigate the mountainous terrain with ease and to strike at their enemies with deadly precision. The companion cavalry became one of the most feared mounted forces in the ancient world, a testament to the adaptability and resilience of the Macedonian military. But it wasn't just the cavalry that defined Macedonia's military. The infantry, too, was an essential part of the kingdom's rise. As the Macedonian army grew, so too did the innovations in their fighting techniques. The Macedonian infantry gradually moved away from the traditional hoplite formations of southern Greece and developed a new kind of warfare. They introduced the sarissa, a long spear, much longer than the traditional Greek spear, allowing the infantry to strike at enemies from a greater distance. This simple yet revolutionary innovation would go on to dominate battlefields across the ancient world. The Macedonian phalanx, armed with sarissas, was a flexible, formidable fighting force. The soldiers were trained not only to fight, but to adapt to changing circumstances, using their long spears to maintain distance from their enemies, while providing a wall of sharp, impenetrable points. The phalanx was a reflection of the Macedonian people themselves, tough, resourceful, and ready to face any challenge head-on. The land had shaped them, and now they used it to shape the world. For all the power that the Macedonian military would eventually wield, it was the geography that taught them the value of flexibility, adaptability, and speed. These soldiers did not rely on overwhelming numbers, but on their ability to move quickly, strike with precision, and retreat when necessary. They understood the terrain in a way that made them seem almost part of it. Whether in the mountains of Macedonia or the plains of Persia, they adapted their tactics to the land, ensuring that they always held the upper hand. It's important to remember that Macedonia wasn't built on military might alone. It was built on strategy, foresight, and an understanding of the land that surrounded it. Macedonia's kings were not simply rulers, they were visionaries, able to look beyond the challenges of their time and see a future of conquest and power. The land may have been harsh, but it was fertile ground for the dreams of men who would stop at nothing to see them realized. As we consider the legacy of Macedonia and its kings, we must understand the deep connection between the land and the people who lived there. The geography of Macedonia was not simply a backdrop for the rise of Alexander the Great. It was an active force, shaping the military, politics, and even the culture of the kingdom. It was in this rugged, unforgiving landscape that the seeds of an empire were sown, where warriors were forged in the fires of struggle, and where a vision of greatness would one day change the world. In the end, Macedonia teaches us a simple yet profound lesson. Greatness does not come from comfort or ease. It comes from adversity, from being shaped by the land, and from the resilience to rise above the challenges we face. The Kingdom of Macedonia, with its harsh landscapes and formidable enemies, was a testament to the power of resilience, adaptability, and the unwavering belief in a destiny greater than the present moment. It was a kingdom that, despite its struggles, rose to greatness not by chance, but by the sheer force of will, vision, and the unbreakable spirit of its people. And perhaps, in this story, there lies a message for all of us. The struggles we face today, the challenges that seem insurmountable, can be the very things that shape us, that forge our strength. Just as Macedonia rose from its harsh terrain, so too can we rise from our own struggles stronger, more resilient, and with a vision of greatness that, though distant, is always within our reach. As I reflect on the story of Macedonia, the rawness of its geography strikes me as more than just a backdrop for war and empire building. It serves as a powerful metaphor for the struggles we face in our own lives. In many ways, the story of Macedonia is the story of resilience of a kingdom that, despite its many hardships, found strength in the very challenges that seemed to threaten its existence. The geography of Macedonia is harsh, unforgiving, and difficult to navigate. The mountains loom like silent sentinels, offering no easy path for those who would dare to cross them. Yet, rather than simply seeing these mountains as obstacles, the Macedonians saw them as a canvas upon which they would carve their future. It was the very difficulty of their land that forced them to adapt, to innovate, and to endure. They had no choice but to become resilient. In life, we are often confronted by mountains that seem insurmountable. Whether in our careers, relationships, or personal challenges, there are times when the obstacles before us seem too great to overcome. We may feel like we are standing at the base of a mountain, looking up at a peak that seems unreachable, wondering how we could ever make it to the top. But the story of Macedonia teaches us an invaluable lesson. It is not the mountain that defeats us, but our belief that we cannot climb it. The Macedonians didn't just survive the harshness of their land, they thrived in it. They learned how to turn their obstacles into opportunities. The very mountains that isolated them also provided them with the protection they needed to grow. The challenges they faced forced them to innovate, to think differently, and to find new ways to achieve their goals. This same spirit of perseverance, of refusing to be defeated by the obstacles we encounter, is something we can all learn from. The Macedonian military was born out of this need to adapt and survive. The companion cavalry, in particular, is a perfect example of this. In a world where speed and mobility were paramount, the cavalry was able to maneuver through the rugged terrain of Macedonia with unparalleled efficiency. The sarissa, the long spear that became the hallmark of the Macedonian infantry, was another innovation born out of necessity. It was not just a weapon, it was a symbol of how the Macedonians, facing the harsh realities of their land, were able to rise above the limitations of their environment and create something truly formidable. What's striking about the Macedonian military, and perhaps what makes it so powerful, is the way it reflects the core values of the Macedonian people themselves: loyalty, resilience, and an unyielding belief in their destiny. These warriors didn't just fight for their king or for glory, they fought for the survival and future of their people. The unity and loyalty of the heteroi, the elite cavalry, were built on more than just military discipline. They were built on the belief that they were part of something greater than themselves. They understood that their success was tied to the success of the kingdom, and their loyalty to their king was a reflection of their commitment to the vision of greatness that was slowly unfolding before them. In this, there is a lesson for all of us. The story of the Macedonian soldiers, their courage and loyalty, teaches us about the power of shared vision. When we are united in a common purpose, when we believe in something greater than ourselves, we can achieve the impossible. It is easy to become disillusioned when faced with obstacles, to believe that success is reserved for those with greater resources or better circumstances. But the Macedonians, with their rugged land and uncertain future, show us that greatness comes not from what we have, but from what we are willing to endure. It comes from our ability to keep pushing forward, even when the path seems unclear. There is also a deeper message here, one that resonates with me personally. The Macedonians didn't just survive, they thrived. They found strength not in their comfort, but in their struggles. The hardships they faced became the very foundation of their greatness. And in this, I find a reminder for myself. In my own life, the challenges I've faced, whether personal, professional, or emotional, have shaped me in ways that I never could have imagined. It is through those struggles that I have learned to be resilient, to adapt, and to grow. Macedonia's rise was not an accident. It was the result of countless moments of perseverance, of finding strength in adversity, and of a people who believed that greatness was within their reach, no matter the cost. This is a lesson that we can all carry with us. No matter what mountains we face, we have the power to overcome them. We can use the obstacles in our lives not as excuses, but as stepping stones on our journey towards something greater. As we look at the rise of Macedonia, let us remember that greatness is not defined by the ease of the journey, but by the strength we find within ourselves to continue, no matter how difficult the road may be. The Macedonians, with their vision and their resilience, show us that we, too, can conquer our mountains and achieve the greatness we are destined for. And in that, there lies the true power of the human spirit, the ability to rise above, to adapt, and to create something lasting from the most difficult circumstances. So, next time you find yourself staring up at your own mountain, remember the lesson of Macedonia. Greatness is not reserved for the lucky or the privileged. It is earned by those who are willing to endure, to fight, and to believe in the possibility of a future that is greater than what they see right in front of them. Just like the Macedonian kings and warriors, you have the power to rise above your circumstances, to transform your struggles into your strength, and to build a legacy that will endure long after the challenges have passed. As the sun began to set over the rugged landscape of ancient Macedonia, casting long shadows across the mountains and valleys, the kingdom's true strength was not in its wealth, but in its unity, forged through shared hardship and a vision of greatness. While the southern Greek city-states Athens, Sparta, and Thebes flourished in culture and intellectual achievement, Macedonia's path was very different. The people of Macedonia were not given the luxury of time or comfort. They were born into a harsh land, one that demanded every ounce of strength, resilience, and loyalty they could muster. But it was precisely this environment, this constant struggle, that became the forge of their greatness. Macedonia's kings were not born into glory. They were forged by fire, not just of battle, but of adversity, hardship, and the will to turn the very land they lived on into the foundation of an empire. The kings of Macedonia knew that their survival, let alone their future greatness, depended on their ability to unite disparate tribes, harness their strengths, and bend the kingdom's challenges to their will. The idea of greatness in Macedonia wasn't shaped by philosophers in open forums or by public debates in grand agorae. It was shaped by the battle-hardened hands of its warriors and the iron will of its kings. At the heart of this unity was one simple, unyielding truth: loyalty to the king and his vision. Unlike the city-states to the south, which often thrived on democratic ideals and intellectual pursuits, Macedonia's strength came from its unshakable loyalty to the crown and to the shared dream of greatness. The Macedonian kings understood that their throne was not just a seat of power, but a responsibility to unite a fractured land, to forge an identity from the scattered tribes, and to create a legacy that would endure long after their reigns had ended. What made Macedonia's rise so remarkable was that it was not based on natural wealth or external alliances, but on an inner strength that flowed from the people and their loyalty to the land and their king. This unity was built not on abstract ideals, but on a shared understanding that survival was never guaranteed. In Macedonia, there was no room for complacency. Each day was a battle for survival, and in that struggle, the foundation of an empire was laid. It was not just the military prowess of the Macedonian kings that made them stand out, but their ability to forge this unity, to inspire loyalty in their people, and to create a sense of purpose that transcended personal gain. The Macedonian warriors, the heteroi, the companions, were not simply soldiers. They were the embodiment of the kingdom's strength. Their loyalty to their king was absolute, and their belief in the future of Macedonia drove them to fight, to conquer, and to carve out a place for their kingdom in the annals of history. The Macedonian army's greatest strength was not its sheer numbers, but its precision, speed, and unity. The soldiers fought not for individual glory, but for the survival of the kingdom. In this, there is a profound lesson for all of us. It is easy to be tempted by the idea that greatness comes from external rewards, wealth, fame, or even the intellectual achievements of others. But the story of Macedonia teaches us that true greatness comes from within. It comes from the will to endure, from the unity of purpose that binds people together, and from the unwavering belief in a future that is greater than the present moment. The companion cavalry, the heteroi, epitomized this philosophy. The elite warriors of Macedonia were bound to their king not just by duty, but by loyalty, by a shared vision of the kingdom's future. They understood that their strength as individuals was nothing compared to the strength they found in their unity. They did not fight for themselves. They fought for the survival and greatness of the kingdom they had sworn to protect. This loyalty to a common cause, to a vision of a future that transcended the immediate hardships of battle, was the true strength of the Macedonian army. It was this same loyalty that allowed the kingdom to grow, to expand, and eventually to become a force that would reshape the world. But there was more to their success than just military might. The Macedonian kings knew that in order to build a lasting empire, they needed to create not just a powerful military, but a culture that valued strength, resilience, and loyalty. They created a system where the soldiers were not mere foot soldiers, but an elite force, bound together by shared ideals and a vision of greatness. The Macedonian army wasn't just an instrument of war, it was a reflection of the kingdom's core values. In this, there is a lesson for all of us. The world today often seems fractured, divided by differing opinions, competing interests, and fragmented ideals. But the story of Macedonia reminds us that true strength comes from unity, from the ability to come together, to set aside personal differences, and to work toward a common goal. In times of crisis or adversity, it is not the individuals who rise above the challenges, but the collective spirit that binds them together. The Macedonian kings were visionaries, but their greatest strength was their ability to turn their vision into reality. They didn't just dream of an empire, they built it, one battle, one tribe, and one loyal soldier at a time. And as their empire grew, so too did their vision. They understood that the future was not something that could be left to chance, but something that had to be fought for, worked for, and earned. In this way, the story of Macedonia is a story of hope. It is the story of a kingdom that was forged in the fires of adversity, that rose from the harshest of landscapes, and that, through loyalty, vision, and resilience, became one of the most powerful empires the world had ever seen. And while the story of Macedonia is one of ancient history, its lessons are timeless. We all face challenges in our lives. We all have mountains to climb, obstacles to overcome, and battles to fight. But the story of Macedonia teaches us that it is not the challenges themselves that define us, but how we rise to meet them. When faced with hardship, we have a choice. We can let it defeat us, or we can use it to fuel our growth, to strengthen our resolve, and to build something greater than ourselves. Macedonia was not built on easy terrain or favourable conditions. It was built on the strength of its people, united by a common vision and a shared belief in something greater than themselves. The Macedonian kings understood that their greatest asset was not their wealth, but their people, their warriors, their soldiers, and their citizens who believed in the future they were building together. And in this unity, in this shared vision of greatness, they found the strength to conquer the world. As we look to the future, let us remember the lessons of Macedonia. Let us not be swayed by the difficulties we face or the obstacles that stand in our way. Instead, let us look to the vision ahead, to the greater purpose we serve, and let that vision guide us toward a future that is brighter, stronger, and filled with possibility. For in the end, it is not the challenges we face that define us, but the strength we find in each other and in our shared belief that we can overcome them. In the end, the rise of Macedonia wasn't just about military power or kingship. It was about the power of unity, vision, and resilience. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all. When we stand together, united by a common purpose, no obstacle is too great, no challenge too insurmountable. With loyalty to our vision and to one another, we too can rise, just as Macedonia did, and shape the world in ways we never thought possible. As I reflect on the story of Macedonia and its remarkable rise, I can't help but draw a parallel to the struggles we face in our own lives. It's easy to look at the challenges we encounter as obstacles, insurmountable walls that keep us from reaching our goals. But what if those very obstacles, the struggles that seem so formidable, are actually the things that define our strength and our potential? What if, instead of seeing adversity as something to be avoided, we embraced it as the forge that shapes us, just as Macedonia was forged in the fires of its harsh, unforgiving terrain? The story of Macedonia is a reminder that greatness does not come from the absence of challenges, but from our response to them. It is the resilience, the ability to rise despite adversity, that defines true strength. When faced with hardships, the Macedonians did not retreat or surrender. They faced them head-on, adapting to their circumstances and using them as stepping stones toward greatness. This spirit of perseverance, the refusal to be defeated by the very forces that seem to work against them, is something we can all learn from. In my own life, I've had my share of struggles. There have been times when the road seemed impossibly difficult, when the weight of challenges felt like it would break me. But, like the people of Macedonia, I've come to realize that those challenges are not the end, they are the beginning. The road to success, to greatness, is never smooth. It is full of bumps, twists, and turns. But every obstacle faced, every setback, every failure is an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to become stronger. When I think about the Macedonian kings and their ability to unite their people, to forge a vision out of the fires of hardship, I am inspired. Their strength did not come from the ease of their environment, but from their unwavering belief in a future that was greater than their present circumstances. The kings understood that the journey to greatness was not a solitary one. It required the collective effort of everyone in the kingdom. They knew that unity, loyalty, and vision were the foundations upon which empires were built. And this is a lesson that resonates deeply with me. In the face of challenges, we can either choose to fight alone, or we can choose to unite with others, to build something stronger together. The loyalty of the Macedonian soldiers, particularly the heteroi, is something that stands out in this story. Their loyalty was not just to their king, but to the shared vision of the kingdom's future. It was a loyalty built on the belief that their efforts were part of something greater than themselves. The warriors fought not for individual glory, but for the survival and future of their people. This sense of collective purpose, of working together for the common good, is something that we can all aspire to in our own lives. It's easy to become consumed by our individual struggles, to feel isolated in our challenges. But the story of Macedonia reminds us that when we come together, united by a common vision, there is no challenge too great for us to overcome. This sense of unity, of working toward a shared goal, is not just something that applies to nations or armies, it applies to us as individuals, as communities, as societies. The Macedonian kings understood that their power came from the strength of their people, not just from their own authority. They were not kings in the traditional sense, ruling from the comforts of palaces. They were warriors, fighting alongside their people, leading by example. This is a lesson in leadership. True leaders inspire through their actions, through their vision, and through their unwavering commitment to the greater good. And so, as I look to my own future, I can't help but ask myself, what vision am I working toward? What challenges am I facing? And how can I turn those challenges into opportunities for growth? Like the Macedonian kings, I know that the road ahead will not be easy. But I also know that, just as the Macedonians did, I have the power to shape my future, not through the absence of struggle, but through my ability to endure, adapt, and rise above it. Macedonia teaches us that greatness is not about comfort, wealth, or ease. It is about vision, unity, resilience, and the courage to face adversity head-on. The Macedonian people didn't wait for the perfect conditions to succeed. They built their empire in the face of immense hardship, turning every obstacle into a stepping stone toward greatness. And this, I believe, is the most important lesson of all. We all have the power to shape our own future, no matter the obstacles that stand in our way. So, as we move forward in our own lives, let us remember the story of Macedonia. Let it remind us that the greatest achievements often come from the hardest struggles. Let it inspire us to embrace adversity, to stay united with those who share our vision, and to keep pushing forward, even when the road seems impossible. For, like Macedonia, we too can rise above our challenges, build something great, and leave a legacy that will endure long after we're gone. As the days passed, the kingdom of Macedonia began to change. It was no longer simply a rugged and remote land on the edge of the Greek world, a place where survival meant strength and strength meant war. Under the reign of its kings, particularly the visionary and determined Philip II, Macedonia started to mould itself into something much greater, a force that could not only stand toe-to-toe with the mighty city-states of southern Greece, but one that would eventually conquer vast empires and change the course of history forever. But this transformation wasn't merely the result of military victories or political maneuvering. It was deeply rooted in the changes that took place within the Macedonian people themselves. Philip II didn't just inherit a kingdom, he inherited a kingdom shaped by generations of hardship, sacrifice, and fierce independence. He understood that the foundation of greatness wasn't built solely on the strength of armies, but on the strength of the people who made up the kingdom. His first task wasn't just to expand borders or conquer new lands. It was to unify the kingdom itself, to forge a strong and lasting identity that would transcend the natural divisions between the various tribes that called Macedonia home. He knew that the unity of his people was not something that could be assumed. It had to be earned, nurtured, and fiercely protected. At the heart of this unity was Philip's understanding of loyalty and the ability to cultivate a deep sense of belonging in his soldiers and citizens. For Macedonia, this was not an easy task. The tribes were scattered, the people were divided, and the kingdom's position on the outskirts of the Greek world meant that its resources and wealth were limited compared to the powerful city-states to the south. But Philip saw something in his people that the city-states had missed. He saw a fire, an untapped potential, waiting to be forged into something far greater than the sum of its parts. And he knew that this fire, this fierce loyalty and pride, could be the key to Macedonia's rise. Under Philip's leadership, the Macedonian army underwent a dramatic transformation. It was no longer just a collection of warriors bound by duty. It became a well-oiled machine, an elite force united by a single purpose: to build a powerful and enduring empire. Philip didn't just rely on the traditional methods of warfare. He understood that the future of Macedonia lay in innovation and strategic thinking. He reshaped the military, refining its tactics, and developing new weapons that would make it one of the most formidable fighting forces in the ancient world. The famous Macedonian Phalanx, armed with long spears known as sarissas, became the cornerstone of his military strategy, allowing Macedonian soldiers to dominate the battlefield with unmatched precision and discipline. But it wasn't just the military that Philip focused on. He knew that to achieve greatness, Macedonia needed more than just a strong army. It needed a stable, functioning system of governance, a system that could unite the kingdom's disparate peoples under a common banner. Philip understood that leadership was not just about ruling from a throne. It was about connecting with his people, inspiring them to believe in something greater than themselves. It was this connection, this deep, unshakable loyalty to the king and the kingdom that would propel Macedonia toward greatness. What made Philip's leadership so effective was his ability to adapt to the changing times. He didn't hold on to old ways simply because they were familiar. He recognized the need for reform, for evolution, for growth. His reign was marked not just by military conquests, but by strategic alliances, political ingenuity, and a keen understanding of the intricacies of power. Philip's leadership was a blend of vision, pragmatism, and an unyielding drive to ensure that Macedonia would not just survive, but thrive in an increasingly complex and volatile world. Philip didn't just conquer lands, he built relationships. He formed alliances with neighboring powers, and through careful diplomacy, he strengthened Macedonia's position both within Greece and beyond. This diplomatic finesse was as crucial to his success as his military victories. He understood that in a world dominated by larger, more established powers, the ability to form alliances and secure the loyalty of others could be just as valuable as having a powerful army at one's disposal. Philip didn't just want to conquer the world. He wanted to shape it in a way that would benefit Macedonia for generations to come. But Philip's vision wasn't just about conquering lands or expanding borders. It was about creating a legacy. He knew that the foundation of any great empire was not just built on the victories of today, but on the institutions and systems that would ensure its stability and longevity in the future. He worked tirelessly to establish a centralized government that would bring together the various tribes and regions under one cohesive system. He understood that unity and order were crucial to ensuring that the kingdom would not fracture as so many others had before it. Philip's efforts to build a lasting empire were not just about securing military victories or political power, they were about securing a place in history. He wanted Macedonia to be remembered not just as a fleeting power, but as a lasting force that would change the course of the ancient world. And he understood that this could only be achieved through vision, strength, and the unwavering loyalty of his people. As I reflect on Philip's legacy, I can't help but see the parallels in our own lives. The story of Macedonia is not just a tale of military conquest and political strategy. It's a story about vision, unity, and resilience. It's a reminder that greatness doesn't come easily, and it certainly doesn't come from comfort or complacency. Greatness comes from the willingness to face adversity, to overcome challenges, and to build something lasting not just for ourselves, but for future generations. Philip's ability to adapt, to innovate, and to unite his people offers a valuable lesson for all of us. In a world that often seems divided, where the obstacles we face can seem insurmountable, the story of Macedonia reminds us that the power to achieve greatness lies within us all. Like Philip, we must be willing to step up, to lead with vision and purpose, and to build a future that transcends the struggles of the present moment. It's easy to become discouraged by the challenges we face. It's easy to feel like the road ahead is too difficult, too uncertain. But as Philip showed us, greatness is not about avoiding difficulty. It's about rising above it and using it as the fuel to achieve something far greater than we could have imagined. In the end, the rise of Macedonia wasn't just about military might or political power. It was about creating something enduring, something that would last long after its rulers were gone. It was about the vision to see beyond the present moment, to believe in the possibility of greatness, and to work tirelessly to bring that vision to life. And as I think about Philip's legacy, I'm reminded that we, too, have the power to shape our own futures, to turn our dreams into reality, and to leave a lasting mark on the world, just as Macedonia did. It won't be easy, and it won't happen overnight, but with vision, resilience, and the loyalty of those around us, we can achieve greatness too. Reflecting on the story of Philip II and the rise of Macedonia, one can't help but draw parallels to the struggles we face in our own lives, whether personal, professional, or societal. The foundation of Macedonia's greatness was built on something far more than just land or wealth. It was built on vision, unity, and the unbreakable resilience of its people. As I delve deeper into this story, I find myself contemplating how these lessons can be applied to our modern world, a world where, just like Macedonia, we often face adversity that seems insurmountable, and yet, with the right mindset, we can overcome it. Philip II's ability to unite his people under one banner, to forge a sense of loyalty, and to drive them toward a common goal is perhaps the most important lesson we can learn from his reign. In our world today, division is often more apparent than unity. We are constantly bombarded with messages of difference, whether it's based on nationality, race, religion, or ideology. But the story of Macedonia, of Philip's ability to unite disparate tribes into a single force, reminds us that the power of unity is unparalleled. It's not about erasing differences, but about finding a common purpose, a vision that transcends personal agendas and focuses on something bigger than ourselves. It's about rallying together, despite our differences, to achieve something that will benefit not just us, but future generations. This notion of unity and shared vision resonates with me on a personal level. I've often found that the times when I've felt most empowered in my own life are the times when I've been part of a team or community that shared a common goal. Whether it's a project at work, a community initiative, or even personal relationships, it's the collective energy and support of like-minded individuals that make challenges feel surmountable. When everyone is aligned with the same vision, the impossible becomes possible. But unity is not always easy. It requires trust. It requires sacrifice, and above all, it requires a leader who can inspire and maintain that trust. Philip II knew that in order to unite his people, he had to lead by example. He didn't just rule from a palace. He led from the front, alongside his soldiers, sharing in their hardships and victories. He understood that leadership wasn't just about issuing commands. It was about inspiring belief. A leader must earn the loyalty of those they lead, and that loyalty cannot be bought with wealth or power alone. It must be cultivated through respect, through shared struggle, and through the leader's unwavering belief in the vision they are creating. I think of the times when I've been most inspired by leaders, those who don't simply dictate from the top, but who engage with their teams, who share in the work and the vision. It's the leaders who demonstrate their commitment, who lead with empathy and integrity, who ignite something within others that makes them want to work toward a shared goal. These leaders, much like Philip II, understand that it's not enough to have a vision. One must also bring others along for the journey, inspire them to see the same future, and help them understand how they, too, are a part of it. Philip's story also speaks to the importance of resilience. Macedonia's rise wasn't without its struggles. It wasn't an empire forged by wealth, but by overcoming hardship. For me, this lesson is profoundly important. Life will always present challenges, some small, some monumental. It is easy to feel defeated when things are hard, to believe that the weight of the world is too much to bear. But the story of Macedonia teaches us that adversity is not the end, it is the beginning. It is the fire through which strength and resilience are forged. If we allow ourselves to be broken by difficulty, we miss the opportunity to become stronger, to become better. One of the greatest lessons from Philip II's reign is the importance of adapting to change. Macedonia was a kingdom that, at its core, had to adapt to survive. It wasn't content to rest on its laurels or accept the status quo. It was a kingdom that understood that to thrive in an ever-changing world, it had to evolve. Whether through military innovation, strategic alliances, or governance reform, Philip recognized that stagnation was a path to failure. This lesson about change is particularly pertinent in the fast-paced, ever-evolving world we live in today. We face disruptions in every aspect of our lives, from the economy to technology, politics, and culture. Change is constant, and it can be daunting. But as Philip II demonstrated, embracing change, rather than fearing it, is the key to growth. We must adapt, innovate, and evolve just as the Macedonians did, taking the challenges of their time and transforming them into opportunities for advancement. Perhaps most inspiring is the fact that Philip didn't just dream of greatness, he took active steps to make it a reality. So often, we get caught up in our dreams and aspirations, but without action, they remain nothing more than fantasies. Philip, however, worked tirelessly to turn his vision into a tangible empire. Every decision, every battle, every alliance was a calculated step toward a larger goal. His legacy reminds us that success is not just about having big dreams, it's about having the courage, discipline, and persistence to work relentlessly toward those dreams, no matter how far away they may seem. The perseverance that Philip embodied is something that I find deeply motivating. It's so easy to lose focus, to become distracted by the small challenges of daily life, or to feel disheartened by setbacks. But when I think of Philip, I am reminded of the power of persistence. He didn't let the obstacles he faced define him. He defined himself by how he responded to those obstacles. And in doing so, he built one of the most formidable empires in history. In the end, Philip's story isn't just about the rise of a kingdom. It's about the power of vision, unity, resilience, and action. It's about the belief that greatness is possible, even when the odds seem insurmountable. And it's about the importance of forging something lasting, something that goes beyond the fleeting victories of the moment. The Macedonian Empire, despite its eventual fall, stands as a testament to what can be achieved when a leader inspires his people to unite, to believe in something greater, and to relentlessly pursue that vision. As I reflect on these lessons, I feel both humbled and inspired. Like Macedonia, we all have the potential to shape our own futures. Our challenges may not look the same, and our paths may not be as grand, but the principles of leadership, unity, and resilience are universal. The rise of Macedonia teaches us that greatness is not a matter of luck or chance. It is something that can be earned, something that is within our reach if we are willing to fight for it. So, the next time we face adversity, let us remember the Macedonian story and ask ourselves, how will we respond? Will we let the challenges defeat us? Or will we rise above them and create something that will last for generations to come? As the early days of the Macedonian kingdom began to fade into the mists of history, the once fragmented and isolated land of Macedonia began to evolve into something much greater than anyone could have imagined. The transformation was slow, marked not only by the sharpness of Philip II's military reforms, but by the shift in the hearts and minds of his people. Macedonia, once defined by its rugged terrain and scattered tribes, was now on the cusp of becoming a mighty empire, driven not only by military conquest, but by a deep-seated vision that would transcend the bounds of time and geography. Philip II, born into a kingdom defined by its hardships, knew that the greatest battles he would face would not be against external enemies alone. His true battle was within, against the deeply rooted divisions of his people, the scattered tribes that had little allegiance to one another. He inherited a kingdom that was still raw and untamed, a kingdom where survival meant strength, and strength often led to conflict. But rather than seeing these divisions as a threat, Philip saw them as an opportunity. He knew that to unite Macedonia, to carve out a lasting empire, he had to build something much more profound than military might. He had to build a culture of unity, loyalty, and vision. Macedonia's rise under Philip's leadership wasn't a mere accident of fortune. It was the result of his acute awareness of the power of people, of his ability to inspire loyalty and cultivate a shared sense of purpose in a kingdom that had long been divided. It wasn't enough to merely conquer new lands. To create a lasting legacy, Philip had to unite his people under one banner, transforming them from a collection of disparate tribes into a cohesive, formidable force. This process of unification wasn't merely political, it was deeply cultural. Macedonia's rise was built on the notion of loyalty, not just to the land, but to the king and the future he envisioned for them. What is striking about Philip II's reign is the way he seamlessly blended the traditional values of warfare with the modern ideas of governance and diplomacy. While his predecessors had often relied on brute force to expand their territories, Philip understood that true power was not solely in the strength of the sword, but in the strength of the people who fought behind it. He knew that a kingdom built solely on military might was destined to be short-lived. The key to his success lay in his ability to foster loyalty among his soldiers and his citizens alike. Loyalty became the cornerstone of Macedonia's rise. It was the glue that held the kingdom together, the driving force that propelled them to greatness. The Macedonian warriors, known as the heteroi, were not just soldiers, they were the embodiment of the king's vision. Philip's ability to inspire absolute loyalty in his warriors transformed them into a force unlike any other in the ancient world. These men were bound not just by duty, but by a shared belief in the future of their kingdom. They fought not for personal glory, but for the survival and greatness of Macedonia. Their loyalty wasn't given lightly, it was earned, forged in the fires of battle, strengthened by the king's leadership, and, most importantly, fueled by the belief that they were part of something much larger than themselves. It was this loyalty, this unyielding bond between king and soldier, that would eventually carve a path through history. But loyalty alone was not enough. Philip's genius lay in his ability to translate that loyalty into effective governance. He knew that a kingdom built solely on military might would falter if it lacked stability, structure, and a cohesive political system. Unlike the democratic city-states to the south, Macedonia under Philip's rule was centralized, focused on a singular vision of unity and strength. While Athens and Sparta were known for their intellectual prowess and military discipline, Philip created a kingdom that was far more dynamic, one that combined the best aspects of military power with strategic diplomacy and governance. Philip's vision for Macedonia wasn't just to expand its borders or to conquer new lands. It was about creating a lasting empire, a civilization that would stand the test of time. He understood that his kingdom needed more than just a powerful military. It needed a system of governance that could unite diverse peoples under one cohesive system. He worked tirelessly to forge a centralized government, one that could bring together the various tribes and regions of Macedonia into a single, unified entity. His reforms were not just military, they were political, cultural, and social. He worked to create a society where loyalty to the crown wasn't just expected, it was ingrained in the very fabric of Macedonian identity. But it wasn't just about unity within Macedonia. Philip understood that the future of his kingdom would depend on his ability to build alliances beyond its borders. He was not just a conqueror, he was a diplomat. He understood that alliances with neighboring powers would be just as important as victories on the battlefield. Philip's ability to navigate the complex political landscape of the ancient world allowed him to secure Macedonia's position not just within Greece, but on the world stage. His diplomatic ingenuity was as critical to his success as his military strategies, and it laid the groundwork for the even greater expansion that would come under his son, Alexander the Great. Philip's legacy isn't simply about his military conquests. It's about his ability to shape the future of his kingdom through vision, unity, and resilience. In a world that was often divided by conflict and struggle, Philip showed that it was possible to create something lasting by uniting people under a shared belief in something greater than themselves. His leadership wasn't just about commanding an army, it was about inspiring his people to work together toward a common goal. As I reflect on Philip II's reign and the transformation of Macedonia, I can't help but draw personal lessons from his story. In a world where divisions seem more pronounced than ever, where the struggles of daily life often seem insurmountable, the story of Macedonia reminds me of the importance of unity and vision. When we face obstacles, whether in our personal lives, our communities, or our careers, it is easy to become discouraged, to feel like the road ahead is too difficult to navigate. But as Philip showed, it is not the size of the challenge that defines us. It is how we rise to meet it, how we unite with others to achieve a shared vision. In our own lives, we too can build something greater than ourselves. Like Philip, we must be willing to face adversity head-on, to adapt to changing circumstances, and to build something that will endure long after we're gone. The story of Macedonia teaches us that true greatness doesn't come from comfort or ease. It comes from the will to endure, from the strength that arises in times of hardship. We all face our own battles, our own obstacles, but it is how we respond to those challenges, how we learn from them, that defines who we are and what we can become. Macedonia's rise wasn't simply a matter of military conquest or political savvy. It was the result of a shared vision, of a deep-rooted loyalty to the king and to the future of the kingdom. It was about people coming together, united by a common purpose, working toward a greater goal. And perhaps, in that, lies the greatest lesson of all. Greatness is built not in isolation, but in unity. When we work together, when we rally around a common cause, we too can create something that endures, something that transcends our individual efforts and leaves a lasting legacy for those who come after us. As I look to the future, I find myself asking, what is my vision? What am I building? Like Philip, I know that the road ahead will not be easy, but I also know that with unity, resilience, and a clear sense of purpose, anything is possible. The story of Macedonia reminds us that greatness is not a matter of luck or chance. It is something that can be earned, something that is within our reach if we are willing to rise above our struggles, to unite, and to keep pushing forward towards something greater than ourselves. Reflecting on the legacy of Philip II and the rise of Macedonia, I can't help but think of how his story resonates deeply with the challenges and lessons we face in our own lives. Philip's ability to transform a fragmented kingdom into a unified, thriving empire wasn't solely the result of his military might or strategic alliances. It was the power of vision and resilience that he embodied. In many ways, his journey reminds me of the importance of not just facing adversity, but using it as a springboard to rise higher, to grow stronger, and to build something lasting, not just for ourselves, but for future generations. When we look at our own lives, we often find ourselves dealing with problems that seem too large, too complex to solve. Whether it's in our personal lives, our careers, or our communities, it is easy to feel overwhelmed, isolated, and uncertain about the future. Philip II's story challenges us to consider how we approach our struggles. It's a reminder that obstacles aren't just roadblocks. They are opportunities to test our resolve and to shape our character. Just as Macedonia faced a land full of untapped potential, so too do we encounter situations that seem difficult but, if approached with the right mindset, can lead to incredible growth. One of the most inspiring elements of Philip's reign was his unwavering commitment to unity. The kingdom of Macedonia, at the time of his ascension, was divided, its people scattered among different tribes, with little allegiance to one another. It would have been easy to accept that division as a permanent state, to see the differences as irreconcilable, but instead, Philip saw it as a challenge to be overcome. He understood that unity wasn't something that could be imposed. It had to be earned, nurtured, and cultivated. I see this lesson reflected in our own lives today. Whether in our personal relationships, in our work, or within society, unity often feels like an unattainable goal, particularly when divisions seem so vast. But what we can take from Philip's leadership is the understanding that unity comes from a shared vision, a purpose greater than ourselves. It's about finding common ground, despite differences, and working together toward a goal that transcends individual interests. The key to unity isn't erasing differences, but recognizing that together we are stronger. This is a value that I hold dear in my own life. When we are united by a shared belief, we can accomplish things that we never thought possible. What struck me most profoundly as I studied Philip's leadership was how he inspired loyalty not through fear or force, but through vision and purpose. The Macedonian warriors, the elite cavalry, known as the heteroi, fought not for glory, but for a cause greater than themselves. They believed in the future of their kingdom, and that belief is what drove them to push through the most difficult of challenges. In my own life, I've realized that true leadership comes not from power or status, but from the ability to inspire others to believe in something bigger than themselves. The most powerful leaders are those who can cultivate a vision and unite others around it. I think of the times in my life when I've felt most motivated, and those times have always been when I've been part of something larger than myself. Whether it was a project at work, a community initiative, or even personal relationships, it's the collective energy and shared vision that make the challenges feel easier to overcome. When you are working alongside others, driven by a common goal, the path to success becomes less daunting. The story of Philip II also speaks to the importance of resilience. Life, like the terrain of Macedonia, is often harsh, and our own journeys are fraught with obstacles. Philip's ability to adapt to these obstacles and continue to push forward is something that resonates with me deeply. In my own life, I've faced my own share of difficulties, times when it felt like I was climbing an insurmountable mountain. But when I look back, I realize that those struggles are what shaped me. The road to success, to growth, is never easy. It's full of setbacks, difficulties, and moments of doubt. But it's also full of opportunities for growth. Like the people of Macedonia, we too have the power to transform hardship into strength. The story of Macedonia teaches us that the key to overcoming adversity is not avoiding difficulty, but embracing it, learning from it, and using it to propel us forward. It's easy to feel defeated when we face challenges, but it is in those very challenges that our strength is forged. We must remind ourselves, as Macedonia did, that no matter how difficult the circumstances, we have the power to shape our future. As I think about Philip's ability to lead with vision, I am reminded that, just like him, we too must lead our lives with purpose. We cannot simply drift through life, hoping that things will get better on their own. Instead, we must make decisions, take action, and be proactive in shaping our own futures. The Macedonian kings knew that greatness wasn't just a result of chance, it was a result of hard work, resilience, and a steadfast belief in a future that was greater than their present circumstances. In reflecting on the legacy of Philip II, I also realized the power of patience. The rise of Macedonia didn't happen overnight. It was built over time, through careful planning, strategy, and sacrifice. Similarly, the most meaningful achievements in our lives take time. It's easy to become frustrated with slow progress, to wish for instant results. But Philip's story teaches us that great things come to those who are willing to work for them, who are willing to endure the long road towards success. It's not about immediate gratification, it's about investing in the future and staying the course even when the path seems uncertain. The lesson of Macedonia's rise, for me, is clear. True greatness comes from within. It comes from the strength to rise above our circumstances, the unity we build with others, the resilience to face challenges head-on, and the vision to create something that will endure long after we are gone. Just as Macedonia rose from adversity, so too can we. We all have the potential to achieve greatness if we are willing to embrace our struggles, to unite with others, and to push forward with determination and a shared vision. In the end, Macedonia was not just a kingdom of soldiers and rulers. It was a kingdom of people who believed in something greater than themselves. They fought not for personal gain, but for the survival and future of their land. Their loyalty and unity were the bedrock upon which their empire was built. And just like the Macedonian kings, we too have the power to shape our own legacies, to create something that will endure, and to inspire others to join us in the pursuit of something greater than any one of us could achieve alone. As the Macedonian Empire began to rise under the leadership of its kings, it was clear that the kingdom was not only shaped by its military prowess, but by the profound philosophical and cultural shifts that were occurring within its people. These shifts were not just the result of a few military victories or political strategies. They were the fruits of something deeper, a deep connection to their land, to their king, and to the potential for greatness that had always lain dormant in their hearts. For the people of Macedonia, this rise wasn't just about the land they ruled or the armies they built. It was about a deep internal transformation that permeated every level of society. The history of Macedonia, as it unfolded under King Philip II, was a testament to the power of vision, determination, and belief. From a kingdom once seen as rugged and isolated, Macedonia was on its way to becoming one of the most formidable empires the world would ever know. Philip II understood that true power does not come from wealth or resources alone. His brilliance lay in his ability to see beyond the physical realities of his kingdom and to envision a future where the fragmented tribes of Macedonia could come together as one. He realized that to unite the kingdom and create a lasting legacy, he had to do more than just win battles. He had to forge a new identity for his people. His leadership wasn't just about conquest. It was about creating something that would endure long after his reign. But the transformation of Macedonia didn't come without its challenges. In a world where the great city-states of the South, Athens, Sparta, and Thebes were flourishing in their intellectual pursuits, Macedonia had always been seen as a rough, militaristic land. For years, its people lived under the harsh conditions of a rugged landscape, their survival shaped by the constant need for strength, endurance, and resilience. While their southern counterparts debated ideas and crafted philosophies, Macedonia had to survive and thrive through the strength of its warriors and the will of its kings. Yet, it was within this environment of struggle and perseverance that the heart of Macedonia's greatness was forged. The kingdom's very harshness, the mountains, the wilderness, and the tribal divisions became the crucible from which a united, powerful empire would emerge. This unity was not something that could be imposed by force. It had to come from a deep sense of belonging, of loyalty, and of purpose. It had to be cultivated by a king who not only wielded military power, but who could also unite his people through shared values and a vision for the future. For Philip II, loyalty was at the heart of this transformation. The loyalty of his people, particularly his warriors, became the foundation upon which Macedonia's empire was built. The Macedonian soldiers were not simply mercenaries, they were the embodiment of the kingdom's spirit. They fought not for personal glory, but for the survival of the kingdom, for the fulfillment of a vision that was far greater than any individual. This loyalty was not easily won. It was earned through shared hardships, through battles fought side by side, and through the unwavering belief in the king's leadership. The Macedonian army, with its famous companion cavalry, the heteroi, was the embodiment of this loyalty, a force united not just by military discipline, but by the conviction that they were part of something larger than themselves. This sense of unity and loyalty was something that Philip had to carefully nurture. He understood that his people were not just a collection of tribes, they were a collective force with untapped potential. Through his leadership, he cultivated this potential by forging a bond between himself and his soldiers, between the king and the land. Philip wasn't just a ruler who commanded from a distance. He fought alongside his people, sharing in their hardships and victories. His leadership wasn't just about issuing commands. It was about inspiring belief, about creating a shared vision that transcended the divisions that had once separated his people. As I reflect on the story of Macedonia, I can't help but draw parallels to the challenges we face in our own lives. It is easy to feel isolated in today's world, to believe that we are alone in our struggles or that the forces working against us are too powerful to overcome. But the story of Macedonia teaches us that unity, belief, and resilience can transform even the most difficult circumstances. It teaches us that true greatness is not found in the absence of struggle, but in the willingness to rise above it, to face challenges head-on, and to fight for something greater than ourselves. In our own lives, we too can learn from the Macedonian kings and their warriors. We may not be leading armies or building empires, but we face struggles of our own. Whether it's in our personal relationships, our careers, or our communities, we are constantly faced with obstacles that seem insurmountable. The lesson of Macedonia is that it is not the obstacles themselves that define us, but how we rise to meet them. Just as Philip II and his warriors transformed their land of hardship into a powerful empire, we can transform our challenges into opportunities for growth and success. The story of Philip II is also a reminder of the importance of vision. Macedonia's rise wasn't just the result of military victories, it was the result of a king who could see beyond the immediate difficulties, who could envision a future where his people were united and strong. This vision became the driving force behind everything Philip did. His ability to look beyond the present moment and imagine a future of greatness was the key to his success. It's easy to get caught up in the struggles of today, to focus on the immediate challenges that seem so overwhelming. But as Philip showed, the key to success is not just surviving the present, but preparing for a future that is greater than what we can see right now. This idea of vision is something that resonates deeply with me. In my own life, I've found that the moments when I've felt most motivated, most driven, are the moments when I've been able to look beyond the immediate obstacles and focus on the long-term goal. Whether it's personal growth, career achievements, or even relationships, it is the vision of what can be achieved that keeps me going, even when the road ahead is unclear. As we move forward in our lives, I think the story of Macedonia teaches us that the greatest achievements are built not on the absence of difficulty, but on the willingness to face adversity and rise above it. The vision that Philip II had for his kingdom was the driving force that led to its rise, and that same vision can guide us in our own lives. Whether it's overcoming personal struggles, achieving professional goals, or making a difference in our communities, the story of Macedonia reminds us that greatness is not about avoiding challenges, it is about using them to fuel our growth and success. In the end, the rise of Macedonia wasn't just about military conquest or political strategy. It was about the power of unity, loyalty, and vision. It was about the belief that even the most difficult challenges can be overcome if we face them together, with a shared purpose and an unwavering commitment to the future. Just as Macedonia rose from its rugged, fragmented past, so too can we rise above our own struggles and create something lasting, something meaningful. And as I reflect on the lessons of Philip II's reign, I am reminded that the power to shape our own futures lies within us all if we are willing to fight for it, if we are willing to unite, and if we are willing to believe in something greater than ourselves. Reflecting on the rise of Macedonia and the leadership of Philip II, it's impossible to ignore the personal lessons that resonate deeply with me. As I read about Macedonia's transformation, I am struck by the way a single vision, a vision that Philip II held for his kingdom, shaped the destiny of an entire people. It's easy to assume that greatness comes from a place of ease or luxury, but the story of Macedonia proves that true greatness is born from resilience, unity, and the courage to face adversity head-on. In many ways, I find myself drawing personal connections to the struggles and victories of Philip II and the Macedonian warriors. I often think about the challenges in my own life, whether in my career, relationships, or personal growth. It's all too easy to become overwhelmed by the obstacles that arise, to feel like the path ahead is too difficult, too uncertain. However, the story of Macedonia teaches us that the key to overcoming these challenges isn't to shy away from them, but to rise above them with a steadfast belief that the future can be better than the present. One of the most profound aspects of Macedonia's rise under Philip II was the way he transformed his people's mindset. From a collection of disparate, often divided tribes, he united the Macedonians under a single vision. His ability to foster loyalty, not just through fear or power, but through shared ideals and purpose, is something that resonates with me on a personal level. I have often found that the most successful teams or endeavors I've been a part of were those where everyone shared a common vision, a vision that transcended personal goals and focused on something larger than any individual. There's something powerful about knowing that you're working towards a common goal, something that binds people together, fuels their effort, and makes the impossible seem possible. In my own life, I've learned that no goal is too distant, no dream too impossible. If you surround yourself with the right people, those who believe in the same vision, the Macedonian army, bound together by loyalty and purpose, was an embodiment of what can be achieved when people work together toward a shared goal. The soldiers didn't fight for their own glory, they fought for the kingdom and its future. It's this spirit of collective purpose that I've come to value in my own endeavors. Whether it's in business, in community, or in personal relationships, the importance of unity and shared vision cannot be overstated. But unity doesn't come easily. It requires effort, commitment, and, above all, trust. Just as Philip II had to earn the loyalty of his people, I've realized that in any team, any relationship, loyalty must be earned. It can't simply be expected. Loyalty, whether to a leader, an idea, or a cause, is built through respect, through hard work, and through a shared belief in something greater. It is through adversity that true loyalty is forged, and the greater the challenge, the stronger the bond. Macedonia's success wasn't just the result of having a strong military or an impressive army. It was about having a vision and the resilience to stick to it, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. Philip II faced immense challenges, not only external threats but internal divisions, resistance, and a kingdom that was often on the brink of collapse. But what stood out was his determination, his ability to adapt, and his ability to unite his people behind a common cause. It's a powerful reminder that in our own lives, when faced with challenges, it's not the challenge itself that defines us, but how we respond to it. Do we retreat in fear, or do we step forward with resolve and determination, believing that there is a better future on the other side? This mindset of resilience is something I have found particularly valuable. Life is never without challenges. There are always setbacks, failures, and obstacles that stand in our way. But like Philip II, we have a choice in how we respond. We can either allow these challenges to defeat us, or we can use them as opportunities to grow and improve. The story of Macedonia reminds me that no challenge is too great when you have a clear vision, unwavering resilience, and the right people by your side. Another powerful lesson from Philip II's reign is the importance of adaptation. The world around us is constantly changing, whether it's in business, technology, or even in our personal lives, we face disruptions and challenges that demand we evolve. Philip didn't cling to the past because it was familiar. He recognized that change was essential for survival and growth. He embraced innovation, developed new tactics, and created alliances, knowing that evolution, both as a leader and as a kingdom, was vital for long-term success. In our own lives, it's easy to become complacent, to resist change because it's uncomfortable. But as Philip showed, adapting is not just a matter of survival, it's a matter of thriving. As I reflect on this, I see the importance of being flexible in my own journey. In times of uncertainty, when things aren't going as planned, I've learned that adapting and being open to change can open new doors. Sometimes, the greatest opportunities come from unexpected places, and it's our ability to embrace those changes that shape our future. The willingness to adapt, to look at challenges from different angles, and to change course when necessary is one of the greatest strengths we can have in our personal and professional lives. Finally, Philip II's legacy serves as a powerful reminder that greatness doesn't come from the absence of difficulty. In fact, it is often the most difficult of circumstances that forge greatness. Just as Macedonia was built from the ashes of division and hardship, we too can build something meaningful out of the struggles we face. Success is not a linear journey. It is full of setbacks, mistakes, and failures. But it is through these trials that we gain the strength, wisdom, and resilience needed to move forward. When I think about Philip II and the Macedonian warriors, I'm reminded of the importance of perseverance and determination. The journey to success may not be easy, but it is those who persist, who continue to believe in their vision despite the setbacks, who ultimately shape the future. As I look toward my own future, I take strength from the story of Macedonia and Philip II's reign. I know that, just like them, I have the power to create something lasting, to transform adversity into opportunity, and to leave a legacy that will endure long after I'm gone. The road will not always be easy, but with vision, loyalty, and resilience, I can build something greater, something that will stand the test of time. In the end, the rise of Macedonia is not just a tale of military might or political savvy, it's a story of vision, unity, and resilience. It's a reminder that greatness is not defined by the challenges we face, but by how we rise to meet them. Like Macedonia, we too can build something that will endure. With vision, strength, and perseverance, we can overcome the obstacles in our way and create a future that transcends the present. The story of Philip II and Macedonia teaches us that greatness is not a distant dream. It is something we can achieve if we are willing to fight for it. The legacy of Macedonia, and in particular the reign of King Philip II, is a powerful reminder that greatness is not an accident. It is a product of vision, leadership, and the courage to unite disparate forces into something far greater than the sum of its parts. When I reflect on the rise of Macedonia, it's clear that its transformation from a fragmented collection of tribes into one of the world's greatest empires was driven by much more than military might. The real power behind Macedonia's rise was the unity, vision, and loyalty that Philip II instilled in his people. At the heart of Philip's success was his understanding of the importance of unity. The Macedonian people were born into a rugged, unforgiving landscape, where survival meant fighting for every inch of land, for every resource, for every piece of stability. They had little in common with the wealth and culture of the southern city-states like Athens and Sparta. Their strength came from the harshness of their environment, which had shaped them into fierce warriors. Yet, as Philip knew, strength alone would not ensure their future. If he wanted to turn Macedonia into an empire, he needed to build something more lasting, a sense of unity that would bind his people together and drive them toward greatness. For me, this lesson of unity resonates deeply. In many ways, our lives are full of challenges that seem insurmountable. We face obstacles in our careers, our personal relationships, and in the societies we live in. The story of Macedonia teaches us that no challenge is too great when we are united. We may not be soldiers fighting for the survival of a kingdom, but we do face struggles that require collective strength. Whether it's overcoming adversity in our personal lives or tackling the complex problems of the world around us, The unity of purpose that binds us together makes all the difference. One of the greatest qualities that set Philip II apart as a leader was his ability to inspire loyalty. The Macedonian warriors, the elite companion cavalry, the heteroi, were not simply fighting for their own glory. They fought for a vision that transcended their own individual ambitions. Their loyalty was a reflection of their belief in the future Philip II had promised them. It was loyalty born not from fear or coercion, but from the deep belief that they were part of something larger than themselves. The warriors fought because they believed in the greatness of the kingdom they were building, and they believed in their king's ability to lead them to that greatness. This loyalty, cultivated by Philip II, was not just a military asset, it was the cornerstone of Macedonian society. The loyalty of the warriors, the citizens, and even the surrounding tribes who saw the vision of a united Macedonia. This loyalty became the glue that held the empire together. It was what allowed the Macedonian soldiers to fight as one, and it was what allowed the kingdom to overcome the divisions that had once threatened to tear it apart. As I think about the loyalty that Philip inspired, I realize that this is a lesson we can all learn from in our own lives. Loyalty is not something that can be taken for granted. It is earned through shared struggles, through belief in something greater than ourselves. It is about cultivating a shared vision, something that people can rally around. In my own experience, I've found that loyalty is the foundation of every successful team or community I've been a part of. Whether in business, in family, or in friendship, loyalty is what makes a group truly strong. It is the unwavering belief that, together, we can accomplish more than we could on our own. But loyalty alone wasn't enough to secure Macedonia's future. Philip II understood that true leadership is about more than just inspiring loyalty. It's about creating a system that will ensure the kingdom's longevity. This is where his genius as a leader truly shines. While other great rulers relied solely on military power to build their empires, Philip understood that real power comes from governance, from creating systems and institutions that could survive beyond the reign of any one king. Philip didn't just conquer lands, he created a foundation for an empire that would last. This vision of governance is something that we often overlook when we think of empires and great leaders. We focus on the conquests, the battles, and the military victories, but the true greatness of Macedonia came from the systems that Philip put in place to unify the kingdom and to ensure its future. Philip's ability to blend military strategy with governance was key to his success. He didn't just want to create an empire for the sake of conquest. He wanted to build something that would stand the test of time, something that would change the world. When I think about this lesson of governance, I realize how relevant it is in our own lives. In a world that often feels chaotic, where change is constant and rapid, we must ask ourselves, how can we build lasting legacies, whether in our careers, our personal relationships, or the communities we serve? How can we create systems that ensure success and stability, not just in the moment, but for the future? It's easy to get caught up in short-term goals and immediate results, but the true value of any endeavor lies in its ability to endure, to adapt, and to leave a legacy that continues long after we are gone. Another important aspect of Philip II's reign was his recognition of the importance of strategic alliances. Philip didn't just focus on military conquest. He understood that forming alliances with neighboring kingdoms and tribes was crucial to securing the future of Macedonia. His diplomatic efforts were as instrumental to his success as his military victories. He understood that the key to lasting power was not just strength, but the ability to navigate the complex web of relationships and diplomacy that existed between kingdoms. In today's world, this lesson of diplomacy is more relevant than ever. We live in a globalized society where success often depends on our ability to form partnerships, to work with others toward common goals. Whether in business, politics, or even in personal relationships, the ability to understand others' needs and build strong alliances is essential. As I think about this, I realize how important it is to value collaboration and cooperation. While we can accomplish great things on our own, there is an undeniable power in working together, in forging relationships that help us all rise. The rise of Macedonia, under the vision and leadership of Philip II, is ultimately a story of unity, loyalty, governance, and vision. It's a reminder that greatness doesn't come from comfort or complacency. It comes from the willingness to face adversity, to adapt to change, and to lead with a clear vision for the future. Whether in ancient times or today, we all have the ability to create something lasting, to build something that transcends our individual lives. The story of Macedonia teaches us that with vision, resilience, and a commitment to a common purpose, we can achieve greatness not just for ourselves, but for future generations. As I reflect deeply on the rise of Macedonia and the remarkable reign of Philip II, it strikes me that the journey of this empire is not simply about the triumphs of military conquests or political strategy. There are lessons within the story of Macedonia that resonate with us on a profoundly personal level. Lessons about leadership, resilience, and the power of a shared vision. These lessons are timeless because they speak not only to the rise of a kingdom, but to the rise of every individual who dares to believe in something greater than themselves, to push beyond their limits, and to build something meaningful that lasts. The story of Philip II teaches us that true leadership is not about ruling from a distance, nor is it about wielding power for its own sake. Leadership, in its most profound sense, is about fostering a collective vision and inspiring others to work toward that vision, even when faced with obstacles that seem insurmountable. I find this particularly moving because it mirrors the challenges we all face in our lives, whether it's within our families, our communities, or our professional endeavors. We may not lead armies, but we all find ourselves in positions where we must inspire, unify, and lead others toward a common purpose. Like Philip, we must cultivate loyalty, not through fear or coercion, but through shared belief in a purpose that transcends our immediate circumstances. What strikes me most about Philip's leadership is how he was able to unite such a fragmented kingdom. Macedonia was, at the time, a land of diverse tribes with no cohesive identity, no common cause. Yet, through his brilliance, Philip was able to see beyond the divisions, beyond the differences in background, and to recognize that the key to success lay in unity. He didn't try to force the tribes to conform to one vision. Instead, he understood that greatness is born from the collective strength of many different people coming together, finding common ground and working towards something bigger than themselves. This is something that, as a society, we often forget in today's world, where the divisions between us seem to be more pronounced than ever. The message from Macedonia is that the true power lies not in what divides us, but in what unites us. In our daily lives, we are often confronted by division, whether it is ideological, cultural, or simply personal differences. It is easy to get caught up in these divides, to focus on the things that separate us. But the Macedonian example teaches us a powerful lesson. It is the ability to unite that gives us the power to accomplish great things. Whether in a workplace, a family, or a community, the ability to focus on shared values and to find a common purpose is what will enable us to rise above the challenges we face. What also strikes me about Philip's reign is the way he adapted to the changing world around him. He was a king in a world that was changing rapidly, from the rise of democracy in Athens to the growing power of the Persian Empire. Philip could have chosen to remain steadfast in old ways, to rely solely on the traditions of warfare and governance that had served the Macedonians up until that point. But he didn't. He recognized that to build a lasting empire, he had to adapt, to innovate, to think beyond the established norms. Philip's ability to do this, to blend the old with the new, to take the best aspects of what had come before and apply them to the future, is a lesson that I believe we all can learn from. In our own lives, we too face a rapidly changing world. Technology, politics, culture, and even our relationships are constantly evolving, and it can often feel overwhelming to keep up. But like Philip, we must embrace this change not as a threat, but as an opportunity. It is through adaptation that we grow, through flexibility that we find new ways to move forward. It is not about abandoning what has worked in the past, but about evolving, about seeing the opportunities in the challenges and making changes that will lead us to success. The story of Macedonia also resonates with me because of the emphasis on resilience. Philip II's reign was not easy. His kingdom was often beset by threats from external enemies and internal divisions. But through all these difficulties, he never gave up on his vision. He didn't let setbacks define him. Instead, he allowed them to fuel his resolve. In life, we all encounter obstacles, some small, some insurmountable, but it is not these obstacles that define us. It is how we respond to them. Do we allow them to break us? Or do we rise, learn from our challenges, and grow stronger? Philip's resilience in the face of adversity is something that I find incredibly inspiring. In my own life, I have had moments where I faced challenges that seemed overwhelming moments, when it felt like the weight of everything was too much to bear. But like Philip, I have learned that resilience is about pushing through those moments, finding strength in the struggle, and coming out the other side stronger. The Macedonian example teaches us that it is not the hardships we face that determine our fate, but how we respond to them. Another lesson from Macedonia is the importance of vision. Philip's vision for his kingdom was not limited to the present moment. He didn't just focus on the immediate battles and victories. He had a long-term vision for Macedonia's place in the world. This foresight is something that I try to bring into my own life. In a world that often focuses on the short term, it's easy to lose sight of the bigger picture. We can become so caught up in the day-to-day struggles, in the small setbacks, that we forget to look ahead. Philip's example reminds me of the importance of having a vision, of looking beyond the present moment and understanding that the decisions we make today will shape the future. In the end, the rise of Macedonia under Philip II is not just about the triumph of one kingdom, but about the power of unity, resilience, leadership, and vision. It's about recognizing that greatness is not built on individual efforts, but on the collective strength of many people coming together with a shared purpose. It's about having the courage to adapt, to evolve, and to remain resilient in the face of challenges. And, most importantly, it's about having a vision for the future, a vision that transcends the struggles of today and inspires us to work towards something greater than ourselves. The story of Macedonia has taught me that true success is not about wealth, power, or individual glory. It's about creating something that lasts, something that makes a difference not just in our own lives, but in the lives of those who come after us. Whether in our careers, our personal lives, or our communities, we all have the ability to create a lasting legacy. The rise of Macedonia, with its emphasis on unity, resilience, and vision, is a powerful reminder that greatness is within our reach if we are willing to fight for it, if we are willing to unite with others, and if we are willing to believe in something greater than ourselves. In the narrative of history, few empires have risen from such humble, rugged beginnings to achieve such monumental greatness as that of Macedonia. Its ascendancy, marked by the extraordinary vision and determination of King Philip II, is not merely the tale of military conquests, but of a people who transformed their destiny through unity, resilience, and an unwavering belief in a shared future. When reflecting on this journey, it's not just the empire itself that resonates. It's the deep, intrinsic lessons that emerge from their story, lessons about leadership, purpose, and the power of collective strength. Macedonia was a kingdom forged by fire, a land where survival was not given, but earned through every step, every struggle, every battle, fought against the forces of nature and man alike. The very geography of Macedonia shaped its people. It was a land of harsh terrain, unforgiving winters, and constant threats from both within and beyond its borders. In this environment, there was no room for weakness. Strength, tenacity, and adaptability were not mere virtues, but necessities for survival. But while the land itself created warriors, it was the vision of Philip II that transformed these warriors into an empire. One of the most remarkable aspects of Philip's reign was his understanding that the true strength of any kingdom lies not just in its armies or its wealth, but in the unity of its people. Macedonia's diverse tribes, scattered across the rugged northern expanse, had long lived with a sense of separation. Each tribe focused on its own survival, its own interests. The challenge that Philip faced was immense. To unite these disparate groups, each with its own customs, languages, and traditions, into a singular, cohesive force capable of building an empire. This was not an easy task. It would have been far simpler for Philip to follow the path of brute military force, to conquer through dominance and subjugation. Yet, instead, he recognized that real power did not come from conquering others, but from uniting his own people, drawing them together through a common sense of purpose. What stands out to me as I reflect on this is the way in which Philip understood the power of human connection. His leadership was not based solely on fear or command. It was based on trust, respect, and shared vision. He knew that to lead effectively, a ruler must not only wield authority but also inspire loyalty in others. Loyalty is a theme that runs through the history of Macedonia, but it is not a loyalty born out of coercion or fear. It is a loyalty earned through shared hardship, through fighting together in battles, and through a king who was not only their ruler, but their companion in the fight for survival and greatness. Philip didn't simply demand loyalty, he cultivated it. This lesson about loyalty resonates deeply with me. In our own lives, we often find ourselves working in teams, leading groups, or engaging with communities where loyalty is essential for success. But loyalty, like in Macedonia, must be earned. It is not simply an expectation, but a bond that forms through shared struggles, through mutual respect, and through the belief in a collective purpose. Whether in a workplace, a family, or a circle of friends, we often see the strength of a group emerge, not when individuals are forced to follow, but when they willingly invest in a vision greater than themselves. When we come together with a shared vision, we create something that cannot easily be torn apart. Reflecting on the unity that Philip achieved with the Macedonian tribes, I realize how much this speaks to the challenges we face in our world today. It is easy to be divided, to focus on differences rather than commonalities. In a world filled with fragmentation, be it in politics, social ideologies, or personal beliefs, the unity that Philip created seems almost like a distant ideal. Yet, his success proves that unity is not an abstract concept. It is a practical, achievable goal built on clear communication, shared goals, and, most importantly, an unwavering belief that together we can achieve far more than we ever could apart. Unity is not always easy to cultivate, but it is the foundation upon which great things are built. In our personal lives, we too must face the challenge of bringing people together, whether it's our family, friends, colleagues, or even strangers. We all know what it's like to face moments of division or discord. But like Philip, we must ask ourselves, how can we transform division into unity? How can we create bonds that are based not on fear, but on shared belief? The lessons of Macedonia encourage us to look beyond differences, to focus on what we share, and to strive for something greater than our individual goals. Another striking aspect of Philip's reign was his ability to adapt. In an era defined by brutal warfare and shifting allegiances, Philip understood that to build a lasting empire, it was not enough to rely solely on military prowess. The most successful leaders, he realized, were those who could adapt to the changing political landscape, those who could shift strategies when necessary, and those who could recognize the value of diplomacy as much as warfare. In an ever-changing world, flexibility and foresight are as important as strength and courage. In reflecting on this lesson, I find myself inspired to adapt to the challenges in my own life. We live in a time of constant change, where new technologies, new ideas, and new challenges emerge daily. The ability to adapt is crucial to success, not just for empires or organizations, but for individuals as well. I am reminded that, like Philip, I must remain open to change, willing to learn, and ready to evolve my strategies and approaches in order to meet the demands of the future. It's easy to resist change, to cling to the familiar, but as Philip's story demonstrates, it's only by embracing change that we can truly grow. Philip's story also highlights the importance of building something enduring, something that would last long after the struggles of the present had passed. He didn't simply want to conquer lands and win battles. He sought to create a legacy that would stand the test of time. His vision was not just about personal glory or momentary victories, but about leaving something behind that could endure. This is something that deeply resonates with me, as it reminds me that true success is not measured by immediate accolades or fleeting achievements, but by the lasting impact we leave on the world and the lives we touch. In my own life, I often find myself thinking about the kind of legacy I want to leave. It's easy to become caught up in the pressures of the present moment, the deadlines, the expectations, the day-to-day struggles. But reflecting on the example of Philip II, I realize that my actions today must be aligned with a vision for the future. What do I want to build that will last? What kind of impact do I want to make that will transcend my own time? These are the questions that guide me, just as they guided Philip. The Macedonian Empire is not just a story of military conquests. It is a story of vision, unity, loyalty, and resilience. It is a reminder that greatness is built not in isolation, but in collaboration, not through fleeting success, but through enduring effort. Just as Philip II built a kingdom from disparate tribes, we too can build something meaningful from our own struggles, transforming challenges into opportunities and creating legacies that will endure long after we are gone. As I think about the lessons of Macedonia, I am reminded that success is never guaranteed. It takes vision, strength, adaptability, and the willingness to fight for something greater than ourselves. But most importantly, it requires unity of purpose, unity of spirit, and unity of action. If we can bring people together, if we can rally behind a shared vision, then we, too, can rise above the obstacles we face and create something greater than we ever thought possible. And, just as Philip II's legacy endures through the Macedonian Empire, so too can our own legacies live on, shaped by the choices we make today and the unity we build for tomorrow. Reflecting on the story of Macedonia and Philip II, I am struck by the profound lessons about leadership, unity, and the power of vision. As I look at my own life and the challenges I face, I see so many parallels with the journey of the Macedonian kingdom. Just as Philip faced a kingdom divided, with tribes scattered across rugged lands, I too have encountered situations where I've had to navigate divisions, whether in my personal life, my career, or my community. The key lesson here, the one that speaks to me the most, is that unity is not simply a product of force, but of shared belief and purpose. I've realized that in many ways, our society today mirrors the fragmented state of ancient Macedonia. We are surrounded by divisions, cultural, political, ideological, that often leave us feeling disconnected, like isolated tribes. It's easy to focus on what divides us, to feel as though we are fighting alone. But Philip's ability to unite his people under a shared vision has made me think deeply about how unity is a choice, not just an ideal. The lesson of Macedonia is clear. When we come together with a collective sense of purpose, we can achieve far greater things than we could ever accomplish on our own. This is not just true in the grand scale of nations or empires, but in our personal lives, in the teams we lead, and the communities we serve. The loyalty that Philip II inspired in his soldiers is another lesson that resonates deeply with me. Loyalty, in its truest sense, is not about blind obedience or fear. It is about belief. The Macedonian warriors fought not for personal glory but for the future of their kingdom. They trusted in their leader, believed in the vision he set forth, and fought alongside him because they knew their efforts were part of something greater than themselves. This kind of loyalty is what allows a team to rise above individual aspirations and work toward a common goal. In my own life, I've learned that loyalty is not something that can be demanded. It has to be earned. It's earned through shared experiences, through the way we treat others, and through the clarity of the vision we present. I've seen this in the most successful teams I've been part of, whether in work or in personal endeavors. When everyone is aligned, when they believe in the greater purpose, there's a bond that forms, and that bond makes the impossible possible. It's a powerful reminder that true leadership is not about controlling people, but about inspiring them to join you in a cause that they believe in. At the same time, I've come to realize that loyalty alone is not enough. Like Philip, we must also be able to create systems that ensure stability, not just in the present, but for the future. I often think about the importance of building lasting structures, whether they are relationships, institutions, or personal habits that can stand the test of time. We live in an era where things move fast, where immediate success can sometimes overshadow long-term vision. But as Philip showed, greatness is not just about what you accomplish today. It's about laying the foundation for something that will outlast you. In reflecting on this, I find myself asking, what am I building that will endure beyond the immediate challenges? Whether it's in my career or personal life, what am I doing today that will leave a lasting legacy? It's easy to get caught up in the pressures of the moment, to focus on short-term wins. But as I look back at the story of Macedonia, I see that true success is not just about immediate rewards, it's about creating something that will last, something that will grow beyond your own life and have a lasting impact. Philip II's legacy also reminds me of the power of adaptability. He didn't cling to old ways simply because they were familiar. He evolved, adapted, and embraced change when necessary. It's easy to resist change, to feel overwhelmed by the pace of the world around us. Yet, Philip showed that those who thrive are the ones who can embrace change and use it to their advantage. In my own journey, I've found that change often brings discomfort, but it also brings growth. Whether in my career, my personal development, or the world around me, adapting to change is essential for success. We cannot afford to stand still. We must move forward with purpose and vision to meet the challenges of a changing world. One final lesson I've learned from Macedonia's rise is the importance of vision. Philip didn't just fight battles for the sake of conquest. He fought for a future. He saw a Macedonia united, strong and enduring, and it was that vision that inspired his people to follow him, to fight with loyalty, and to sacrifice for the kingdom. The story of Macedonia teaches me that vision is the driving force behind everything. Without a clear sense of purpose, it's easy to become lost in the chaos of day-to-day life. But when we know where we are headed, when we have a clear and compelling vision, it becomes easier to rally others and create something meaningful. In the end, the rise of Macedonia was not just about the military might of its people or the strategic brilliance of Philip II. It was about the collective will of a people who came together, united by a shared vision of greatness. They didn't just survive, they thrived. And in doing so, they left a legacy that would echo throughout history. The story of Macedonia serves as a powerful reminder that the challenges we face today can be the very things that propel us to greatness. With unity, loyalty, adaptability, and vision, we too can rise above our struggles and create something that will endure long after we are gone.